I had the opportunity to see Violation when it played at Sundance this year. It's now coming to Shudder and is quite the viewing experience. But does that mean it's worth checking out? A troubled woman on the edge of divorce returns home to her younger sister after years apart, but when her sister and brother-in-law betray her trust, she embarks on a vicious crusade of revenge. The story circles around 4 characters. We have Miriam, Caleb, Greta, and Dylan. Madeline Sims-Fewer plays Miriam, and she also serves as the co-writer and the co-director. As Miriam, she is not an instantly likable character. We meet her in what turns out to be a flashback, and her dynamic isn't immediately endearing. And while she may not be the most congenial character, her situation that leads to the crux of the film is certainly not deserved. While Caleb is important to show some of the mindsets and frustrations of Miriam, he's got the smallest role out of the 4 players. I think the dynamic between Miriam and the others is really interesting though. So first, like I mentioned with Caleb, who's her husband, there's quite a bit of tension there. Miriam's love for Caleb is even called into question, which makes their relationship pretty strained. Greta is Miriam's sister, and they have a strained dynamic as well. Greta lives in the US while Miriam is still back in the UK, and this distance causes some tension between them. They're also not terribly chummy, which becomes even more so after Miriam is betrayed. Now, Dylan and Miriam seem to get along the strongest and best. They have a long friendship history, and there may even be some dormant feelings for each other. One very extended scene in this caused some visceral reactions from both Miriam on screen and then me experiencing the story. And experiencing is certainly the right word for this. This is a very tough watch. I mean, it's violent, but not just for violence's sake. We watch Miriam transition through some stages of grief, but also she's taking back a sense of power that was stolen. Her security and self-worth are really being reclaimed in this. And there are many difficult and uncomfortable conversations throughout, both in flashbacks and in the present. And the situations are also just wrought with anxiety. They're also awkward, but more because of anger than anything. So like I said, there's an extended period of violence in this, and it is visceral. To watch and not flinch or even look away at all is probably not something that many are going to be able to do. The scene is painstakingly disturbing and long, but it's certainly not boring. And there are so many layers that are being gone through in this act of the film. And now, even though it is violent and it's pretty harsh to watch, I don't think it's as gruesome as the notorious scenes from, Bone Tomahawk or even Terrifier. I do think, however, the scene is still just as disturbing because of the emotions that are involved. And a lot of the actual story content and drama come from the dialogue between our characters. I felt a ton of tension and anxiety between Miriam and Greta as they speak. And the relationship is already not one of hugs and kisses, so as the story progresses, the comments get more biting and fierce. One thing that I liked in the film but doesn't make me fully satisfied is that no character emerges from this story unscathed. To quote the prince in Romeo and Juliet, "All are punished." And this seems fitting for the story. I think part of the narrative is reclaiming strength and control, but at what cost? The filming is captured really well, and while we're always the observer, there are some very intimate shots that put us right into the mindset of the character. At these times, we can feel their frustration, or hurt, or anger, or even desire. And a lot of the settings of this take place at a cabin in the woods. It's intimate, but it's also isolated. And that makes it both a welcoming retreat and a lonely prison. The remoteness is necessary and effective in creating an atmosphere of secrecy, which comes into play in more ways than one. One thing that is worth pointing out is the special effects used. And I'm not talking CGI here, but in model creation. The filmmakers had something crafted that looked very realistic, and because they only had one of them, they needed to film in a certain sequence to get the most use from the effect. And I'm highly impressed at how they pulled it off. So as engaging as the experience was to watch, and as well as the performances are executed, this is one of those films that I don't think I'm ever going to watch again. The dialogue is wonderfully crafted, as are the nuances of the cadence and the line delivery, and the characters are complexly layered, but still, they're relatable in ways. There is sex, some graphic nudity, a lot of profanity, and some very brutal violence, including sexual violence. I give Violation 3.5 out of 5 couches. So what's a movie that caused some sort of visceral reaction for you? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.